Right, Alan Thompson. Um, we are just putting the finishing touches to your book, your first very own biography. Why now? 15 years ago, there was a period. Uh, Neil Lennon, Stilian Petrov, Chris Sutton, John Harton, lots of your iconic teammates from that Martin O'Neill era. Why have you never ever done a book until now?
Well, as you just mentioned, I've had lots of teammates over the years from various clubs done books, and I've never really fancied it. For one reason or for another, I can't really put my finger on it, but I just feel like now the time's right. Obviously, I stopped playing. It was in 2008 at Leeds, and then went into the coaching side of the game, which I absolutely loved. Still do. I'd love to get back in some capacity, but I just thought there was still a lot left of my life after retiring from football in 2008, and I thought, you know, now I'm approaching 48 at the end of this year. I just thought there's a good few years from when I retired to the current day in 2021. So a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of stories to tell, and just wanted to get it out there really.
And the name, it's clues in the name what it's about, a Geordie boy. I think it's very fitting. I think it's very you. Obviously, Celtic icon. As we just said a minute ago, you were as good for Bolton as you were Celtic, but that's not as high profile. Bolton played a big part in your life, though, didn't it?
Yeah, but I've got a fond spot for all the clubs I was at, but I think a Geordie boy. There's a saying in Newcastle, and it's some of my pals from school have got a tattoo on them saying "proud to be a Geordie." I'm not a tattoo man, but if I was to have one, proud to be a Geordie would be somewhere on my body. But that's my heritage. That's what I am. I'm a Geordie through and through.
Whereabouts in Newcastle?
From Wallsend, Battle Hill and Wallsend, and then moved to Walker later on in my teenage years. So black and white, and being a Geordie, pulling on the black and white stripes was one of the proudest days of my career after what I'd been through in the car crash, which I talk about in the book in depth. I think it's a pretty poignant part of the book. I think it's early on in the book, so I think it sets the scene for what kind of life I'd had, and I'd always come back from a comeback or a setback. And then obviously the boy side of it being the Irish boy Celtic connection. So, but yeah, out with Newcastle and Celtic, those other big clubs that played parts of my career. Bolton Wanderers being the standout one of that, and then obviously a big money move to Aston Villa. So we talk about everything. We cover everything in the book.
There's a lot of big clubs in for you as well, which can't reveal now, but there's a lot of stuff in there that I never had any idea about, and it's. It gives a real insight to the modern day footballer, and I actually think you don't have to be a football fan to read this book.
Yeah, it's about being before professional football, how I fell in love with the game, during it, the highs and the lows, big games, winning big games, losing big games, and then after the football, dealing with life after being on a pitch and being adored by whether it's 10,000, 5,000 at Hartlepool to 65,000 at Celtic Park or 90,000 at Wembley. It's dealing with those gaps that you can't fill in your life, and so we go into depth about all kinds.
Yeah, listen, anyone who knows you hit the headlines on the front as well as the back, and credit to you, because I thought when I first started working with you, you probably wouldn't have spoke about everything, but there hasn't been not one thing you've tried to avoid.
No, I've got nothing to hide, and hopefully there'll be one or two younger players or just young kids in life who might take a few things out of the book and think, yeah, that's impressive, or he's done well to come back from that. So yeah, there's a lot of life stuff in there. It's not just about sport.
It's a funny book as well, isn't it?
Yeah, hey, there's a lot of humour in there.
Especially when Chris Sutton and you were about.
Yeah, how do you get through life without humour? I've sometimes wondered that about the last few years, but because there's been bad times as well as good times. So yeah, there's a lot of humour in there. Some played with some great characters and grew up with some great characters in the early years. So no, it's hopefully it'll be a good read.
And I said something to you. It probably sounded harsh, but it was very true. And it was obviously you went off the radar when you left Celtic 2012. A very high profile sacking, if you like, and you seem to have vanished. And you've kind of been gone. And I dare say a lot of Celtic supporters worldwide have probably forgot about you.
Yeah, well, there was a lot going on. That being one of the things that was going on in my life, losing my job at Celtic, and then other things that we go on to in the book.
There's nothing here that you were really brutally honest about everything.
Yeah, I mean, I've read footballers' books in the past, and it just goes from this game to that game, from that game to this game. Yes, of course, there's games in the book that we talk about because I played in some great games, and not just for Celtic, but for Bolton and the England cap and what have you. So yeah, it's not from game to game. I think there's life stories in there, and not just your life for 90 minutes on a pitch, but away from that as well.
Yeah, and we've been to see Josh Warren today. Any kind of sporting figure who, what goes up must come down, and it's all listen. I've typed your book out. I've heard it all, and it's a very glamorous. You think, wow, it's all this young lad has everything at his feet, ridiculous money, designer clothes, everything offered on a plate. A lot of bad influences, the women, nothing. You've never been involved with drugs, but that's been pushed on you. And what's it like when you're someone, and then when the final whistle goes or the final bell or whatever, and then it's reality? Is it hard?
No, I wouldn't say it's hard. You've just got to find your way of dealing with it. When I played, I still do. I love playing golf, so that was a release from me. You put your phone in your golf bag and you don't look at it for 4 hours. For me, that was a release, and it still is to this day. So you just got to find your way of dealing with it. Whether you're a snooker player or a footballer or a golfer or a cricketer or a boxer, you just got to find your way of dealing with things, and you do. You get a lot of time. You get a lot of time on your own, a lot of time away from your families, and it's just how you deal with that as an individual.
But, you went from literally being mobbed in places like Glasgow, where I've lived in Glasgow and I know how serious they take the football. There's a few, certainly the Celtic and Rangers chapter, which it's quite like, wow. I don't think people grasp unless they've lived in Glasgow or they've lived, for either one of the big clubs. But Celtic and Rangers, you've certainly written your name in Glasgow folklore for good reasons, for bad reasons, but everyone seems to remember you. And since we've pushed this book, I'm personally going to say this, there's a lot of excitement from Celtic fans because, I remember you. I paid money to watch you, and you vanished, and then now, and it's you were like, as you were for Bolton and Leeds or whatever, but the Celtic family really took you to the heart, and it's we really went into it in this book, haven't we?
Yeah, we go into everything.
There's a few chapters on it.
Of course, we go into the old firm in depth and the good side of it and the bad side of it and the indifferent side of it. So, not meaning to be too serious, but yeah, there's great stories in there about the old firm games. Yeah. Good, bad. But then there's some
good, bad, and the red cards.
Yeah, good, bad, and the red cards. So there's a little bit of humour in there as well, and look back on them all with fond memories.
Yeah, and who's done the forward?
The boss has done the forward. Martin O'Neill. He was delighted when I told him, when I asked him. Yeah. Because I did throw a few names around. Yeah. Certain other people who I know high profile.
I think there was only one man.
Yeah, I think
we had a short list.
Yeah, I think we did. I had a short list of 3, and I mentioned the 3 to him, and he was absolutely delighted that I'd actually chosen him. So he accepted on first offer. So yeah, I'm delighted he's doing that. Very kind of him. Just a great guy, and I'm sure there'll be a little bit of seriousness in his forward, but I'm sure he'll be slagging me off in some capacity as well.
Yeah, so a Geordie Bhoy, Alan Thompson, is going to be coming on this autumn. It's going to be out in audio, it's going to be out in Kindle, it's going to be out in paperback. And, this is my 20th book. And I think a lot of, I'm obviously the biggest Celtic fan in the world, but I've never personally been excited about a book like this. And last word to you, Tomo?
No, I'm really pleased I've eventually got around to doing it. And as I said, it's not just about game to game football and winning 3-0 at Tannadice or what have you. There's a lot of good stuff in there about away from football as well. So hopefully it'll be a great read.